2 summers ago, something happened that still makes my skin crawl whenever I walk alone. I've always known that Dallas isn't exactly the safest city. Human trafficking? It's not just a rumor here, it's real. I even had a coworker once who vanished from work, only to resurface later, hidden away in a safe house. The FBI had intervened after she blew the whistle on her own relatives. Apparently, her entire family was running a trafficking ring. As disturbing as that was, I thought those things only happened behind closed doors laced with manipulation, drugs, or long-term grooming. I never imagined someone could just be snatched up in broad daylight. That day I was riding my bike to a smoke shop that's a bit out of the way. Not the best part of town, I'll admit, but it was the middle of the day and I've biked through worse. I was 24 back then, pink-haired, compact but fit, with a military background that always gave me a certain confidence or maybe arrogance. I never really saw myself as an easy target. But predators don't always wait for the weak. I stopped at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to turn, when a white van crept up beside me. 2 Hispanic men leaned out through a cracked window, hurling catcalls. But their tone wasn't the typical crude nonsense that was darker. There was a shared excitement between them, like they were talking in code, then yelling out things like, "She's the one," and "You're next." Their grins didn't match their words. It wasn't flirtation, it was a warning. I gave them the finger, expecting that to be the end of it. But it wasn't. As I kept riding, the van disappeared behind the meat first. Then, just beyond an empty lot, I saw it again. They had pulled ahead and blocked the sidewalk in front of an alleyway, a narrow, walled-in space, the kind of dead end that gives you a bad feeling before you even look twice. I realized too late they had tried to funnel me in there like herding prey into a trap. It all happened in less than 10 seconds. But my body reacted before my brain did. I didn't scream. I didn't freeze. It was like a cooler version of myself kicked in. I instantly swerved, crossed the street without hesitation, and kept pedaling like hell. Only once I reached the other side did I register that it was the same van, but now, suddenly, it had a fake business magnet slapped on the side. Window repair, or something equally generic. No phone number, no real branding. Just a pathetic attempt at legitimacy. I looked back. There was no one in the front seat. But there was movement. The 2 men had climbed into the back, crouched by the rear doors waiting. They were ready to yank me into that van in broad daylight on a public road without a second thought. My blood ran cold. As soon as they realized I'd evaded them, they scrambled back into the front and took off, tires screeching, smoke rising from the rubber. I made it to the smoke shop, safe but shaking. The whole time I kept thinking I should have memorized their plate. But even if I had, I doubt it would have mattered. Guys like that don't use traceable plates. It wasn't until later, when I told the story to someone from Mexico, that the full horror of it really landed. They nodded solemnly and said, "That sounds like human traffickers." They'd heard it before. Many times. That was the moment it truly hit me. No one would have noticed I was gone. I didn't have close ties with my roommates. My family and I, well, were not exactly in touch. I could have been across the border or buried in some nameless lot, and no one would have even known I'd vanished. I always thought I could handle myself. But now, whenever I hear tires squeal behind me, I flinch. Back in 2010, I was driving solo across the country from New Orleans to Eugene, Oregon, with everything I owned stuffed into a 14-foot U-Haul. My only companion was my 2-year-old pit bull, curled up in the passenger seat. I was 24, armed with nothing but a printed MapQuest route and one of those old flip phones. No GPS. No reliable cell service. 4 miles at a time, I'd pass through the desert with 0 bars and nothing but endless sky and asphalt. I was somewhere deep in central Texas, middle of nowhere, when I glanced at the fuel gauge and felt that spike of panic. I was nearly out of gas. Not a town, not a sign of civilization in sight. Just as I was starting to feel truly anxious, a town appeared. Like a mirage. Small, unassuming, almost forgotten. It wasn't more than 6 streets, just a tiny patch of buildings in the dust. I pulled into the only gas station, paid at the pump, and didn't think much about it. I was focused on getting back to the highway and continuing north. But once I was done fueling up, something strange happened. No matter how many turns I made, I couldn't find the exit back to the highway. I circled the town, twice, a third time. The road out seemed to vanish every time I got close. And yet I could see the highway in the distance. It was right there. How could it be that a town this small had somehow swallowed me whole? Frustrated, I finally decided to go inside the gas station and ask for help. The interior was dim, dusty, and quiet. Behind the counter stood a thin guy with stringy black hair that draped across his face like he didn't want to be seen. He didn't look up, just kept staring at a magazine, barely acknowledging me. He He wasn't creepy, just wrong. Like someone who'd never learned to make eye contact. When I asked how to get back to the interstate, he mumbled some directions that didn't sit right. He said I had to take a road that curved around for about 17 miles to reconnect with the highway. That made no sense. I told him I'd only driven a few minutes from the interstate to reach the town. His answer? Something vague about how the road wraps around. Then he lazily waved me toward the door without ever looking up. The moment I stepped outside, I froze. My heart started racing uncontrollably. I wasn't cold, but I was shaking. My hands trembled as I unlocked the truck. And as soon as I slid behind the wheel, I burst into tears. I didn't know why, but I knew I couldn't follow those directions. That man wanted me to disappear. But who else could I ask? There were no other stores, no people on the street, no signs. The town felt like a trap. I made a choice. If I had to drive every street 100 times, so be it. I wasn't going down that road. Not alone. Not at night. That's when a rust-covered red pickup truck pulled up. It looked like it had survived a few wars. Out stepped a big Texan, bearded, burly, in worn flannel and heavy boots. Before I even thought it through, I jogged up to him, trying to hide my panic behind nervous laughter. "Excuse me, sir, can you help me find my way back to the highway? I know it sounds ridiculous, but I just can't seem to find it." He looked at me kindly, then glanced at my U-Haul and the dog peeking through the window. He chuckled and said, "You're not the first." He described a sharp turnoff right near a low concrete tunnel, so subtle most people miss it in the dark. He reassured me it was just a quarter mile away. I asked him how many miles it was to the highway. He looked puzzled and said, "A quarter mile tops. You can see it from here." And that's when the chill returned. I told him what the clerk inside had said about the 17-mile route. The Texan's smile faded. He grew quiet. His eyes narrowed. "How do you know about that road?" he asked slowly. I told him the gas station guy gave me the directions. The man nodded grimly and went to his truck. He pulled out an old, creased map, spread it on the hood, and traced the path the clerk had described. That road? It led away from town straight into nothing. "It ends after 17 miles, he said. "Just sand, junk cars, trailers. That's about it." I asked who lived out there. He didn't sugarcoat it. "One family. Locals know to avoid him. Bunch of meth heads and drunks." "The guy at the gas station?" "He's one of them." The Texan looked me dead in the eye. "You did the right thing. Always trust that feeling." To this day, I don't know what would have happened if I'd gone down that road. Maybe he wanted what was in the back of my U-Haul. Maybe it was something worse. But I never had to find out. Sometimes your guardian angel doesn't have wings. Sometimes he's just a weathered, kind-eyed stranger in a beat-up truck with a map. I never got his name. But wherever you are, kind sir, you saved my life. My grandparents own a place deep in the woods of East Texas. Growing up, we used to visit often for family events, birthdays, barbecues, holidays. Over time, I started going out there with friends, camping, partying, you name it. The land was familiar, comforting even. So, in February of 2014, when I realized I'd be stuck writing a press release all weekend, I thought, why not get some quiet and fresh air instead of being trapped in my Houston apartment? It would be my first time staying out there alone. The idea had always intrigued me, just me, nature, and silence. When I called my grandfather to ask if I could use the place, he said yes, but with an odd tone in his voice, a hesitation, like something unsaid was weighing on him. He asked if I knew how to turn on the power and water. Of course I did. I'd done it dozens of times before. Then, in a lower voice, he added, "You know where I keep the Henry, right? The rifle." Yeah, I knew. My granddad always kept a .3030 Henry repeater out there. Usually for deer, maybe snakes. But hearing him bring it up unprompted made me pause. Still, I laughed it off. I was 24, pretty outdoorsy, and had hiked more miles than I could count. I wasn't afraid of being alone in the woods. If anything, I was excited. The drive out was relaxing. I left work around 4:30, already packed, and made it just before dark around 6:45. The sun was dipping beneath the treetops. The house, well, it's less of a cabin and more like a luxury lodge. My granddad built it after retirement. 12 bedrooms. Big wooden beams. The kind of place you'd brag about to friends. I brought my bag upstairs and set it up in the master bedroom. I opened my laptop to glance at work, then instantly closed it. That could wait. The woods were calling. There's a trail that loops the perimeter of the property, about 3.5 miles. With the sun gone and the sky moonless, I debated grabbing the rifle but instead opted for a heavy wooden stick, just in case I tripped. I threw on a jacket, grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the dark. The sky was dazzling, stars flung across it like glitter, but the forest was still and silent. I let my eyes adjust and kept the flashlight off at first. After a mile or so, I decided to cut through the woods and head back early. I knew these woods like the back of my hand. That confidence quickly shattered. Pushing through a wall of tangled brush with my stick, I stopped cold. Something was lying just ahead, hidden by branches. Clothes? Trash? I raised the light. Moved. In a blur, the shape shot up and bolted through the trees. Humans. Definitely human. My blood froze. I tried to yell out, "Hey," or "Who's there?" but my voice cracked and failed. My flashlight shook in my hand. That gut instinct kicked in hard. And then it hit me, they ran toward the house. My stomach dropped. Did I lock the door? I couldn't remember. And worse, I left my phone on the bed. I didn't think so. I just ran. Every sound in the woods made me flinch. Every shadow stretched too long. The trail opened 150 yards from the front patio, and I sprinted the rest, heart pounding, adrenaline roaring. And when I got to the porch, the door was cracked open. I didn't know if I'd left it like that or if someone else had. Gripping the stick like a weapon, I stepped inside. The air was ice. Silent. A scream. High-pitched. Raspy. Somewhere inside the house. I nearly dropped the flashlight. Terror like I've never felt before overwhelmed me. I ran upstairs expecting at every turn to see some gaunt figure leap out at me. I slammed the bedroom door shut. Another scream. Closer now. Beneath me. I rushed to the bathroom, locked the door, and crouched in the shower, fumbling with my phone. 911. My voice shook as I tried to explain what was happening. I don't know how much sense I made. I just begged them to come. The nearest town was 9 miles away. 20 minutes. That was how long I had to wait alone, trembling, listening. One more scream came. This time deeper. Wet like it was being choked back. Then silence. When I finally saw the red and blue lights flash through the window, I could barely move. A voice shouted, "Police! Anyone inside?" I stepped out of the bathroom just as a cop rounded the hallway, gun drawn. "Don't move." I tried to explain, hands raised, but they cuffed me anyway. Then I heard another voice downstairs yell, "We need an ambulance now." They uncuffed me after sorting it out. The man I had seen in the woods was now lying in the living room, unmoving, on his back, arms stiff. His head is in a pool of blood, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. Turns out he was a paranoid schizophrenic, possibly homeless. No one knew how he got there. Some kind of blunt trauma had killed him. Maybe a fall, maybe not. All I know is if my grandfather had been the one out there instead of me, the ending might have been even worse. And yes, I still submitted my press release that Monday. But now, even in silence, I listen. Because there's always something in the dark.